My daughter Heather was a first grade teacher in Florida. And when her daughter, my first granddaughter, was in first grade, she redid her room to look like a winter wonderland. She took all the chairs and the desks out and lined them up in the hallway so it looked like they were on a train. And inside she put fake snow and lights and Christmas trees and little stacks of cotton balls. And to get into the room that day, those first graders had to buy a ticket with toy food or with toy coins, plastic, and it was $1.37 or 42, and you had to count out the right change. And during the day, for their geography lesson, they learned to go from Florida all the way up to the North Pole, learning the states as they went by shapes. And they made, for a cooking class, they made hot chocolate. And when they did things correctly, like if they knew the word train or track or bell or hope for their word ball, they earned themselves a candy cane. And then at the end of the day, they all got their tickets and went out and sat in their seats, and they got to watch the movie Polar Express. And to this day now, their school has, on the last day before Christmas break, the Polar Express Day, just to honor my Heather.
Someday your daughter, maybe after she retires, she's going to have to come down and tell the story herself. It's very good, very nice. Well, you know, this story takes place, it starts out in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we happen to have a couple of our players here. Jerry playing the tuba and Wells once in a while, and his sister-in-law Lois, who plays flute, and they're from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Do we have any in Michigan? Oh, yeah, look at that. Yes. Well, she's going to share some information about that as well.
So our last selection is the Polar Express. And we are so fortunate to have had Chris Van Allsburg write this. He's from our city. The Polar Express is a 1985 fantasy children's picture book that was written and illustrated by Chris Van Allsburg. The book is now considered a classic story for young children. How many of you have seen the movie? We're not young. We love it. As a former middle and high school English teacher, I can tell you that it's not just young kids that love this book. It truly resonates with all students. The Polar Express was praised for its detailed illustrations and calm, relaxing storyline. A couple pictures here. Chris actually did all of the illustrations as well. And for that, he won in 1986 his second Caldecott Award, which is the award given to an illustrator of an American children's book. And this was his second after Jumanji, if you remember that. The book is partially set in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the author's hometown, and the hometown of my sister and I, and my brother-in-law on the tuba. So he was inspired in part by the downtown area of Grand Rapids. We had two major department stores, and I say had because everything's gone. They were Herpelsheimer's, and if you've seen the movie, as the train is leaving Grand Rapids, the little boy in the pajamas says, "Herpelsheimer's!" And that's when we all went, oh my gosh, I've been there. We did that. My sister, brother-in-law, and I have memories of walking to Wurzburg's, where the real Santa Claus was. So we had to see the real Santa Claus there. And then we went up the block trudging through the snow to look at what was probably in the 60s, maybe in the 50s for one of us. Totally animated windows, unlike things you see now, but the windows were animated. And we stood there, it seemed for hours, with Mom saying, gotta go, gotta go. No, there was to explain. The Polar Express is a story about a young boy who was awakened on Christmas Eve night by the sound of a train whistle. To his astonishment, the train was on the street in front of his house. This train, the Polar Express, was journeying to the North Pole. When it arrives, the conductor explains that Santa Claus will choose one child on the train to receive the first gift of Christmas. Santa selects the little boy to receive the first gift. He realizes that he could choose anything in the world, but he simply asks for a bell from one of the reindeer's harnesses. The boy puts the bell in the pocket of his pajamas, and then it's time to watch Santa fly off in the night doing his deliveries. Later, on the train ride home, the little boy reaches into his pocket, and the bell had fallen through a hole. And the train started pulling away from the North Pole. You can imagine the sadness. But the next morning, his little sister Sarah finds a package hidden way under the Christmas tree behind all the other gifts. It's very small. He opens the box and discovers the bell with a note that Santa wrote saying, "I found this on the seat of my sleigh." When the boy rings the bell, both he and his sister hear its lovely sound, but his parents think it's broken. They can't hear the sound. And the book ends with the following lines. "At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found that one Christmas she could not hear the bell. Though I've grown up and old, the bell still rings for me and all of those who truly believe." The Polar Express.